Hi, my name is Greg. I just moved to Japan, and since I'm in quarantine, I wanted to make a quick video to talk about my experience getting into the country, to give those about to do the same a better idea of what to expect once you get into the country or what you might need before even getting on the plane. So currently Japan is not allowing any tourists to enter the country. You can only get in through a certain visa. Myself, I got in with a spousal visa. My wife is Japanese, and luckily I was able to get in with that. But even if you do have a visa to get in, you can still be denied permission if you do not have the proper paperwork or if something is missing. For me, this was the scariest part because no one wants to get on a plane for 10 hours only to get denied and have to travel all the way back. What are these documents? The first is a written pledge saying that once you enter the country, you agree to quarantine for 14 days and you will not go and meet anyone during that time. The next is a questionnaire asking about your location history for the previous 14 days. This is to ensure that you are not coming from a high-risk COVID area. Coming from one of these areas could result in extra quarantine or being denied entry completely. Myself, I came from California. Previously, people flying from California had to quarantine an additional 3 days before starting their 14-day quarantine. But luckily, a few days before my flight, that restriction was lifted and I'm just doing the regular 14 days. Next on the list is probably the most important and actually should be first on the list, but that is proof of a negative COVID test within 72 hours of your flight. Japan is a little bit more strict in that they only accept certain types of tests and requires a doctor's signature from which you have to give them a form. The next things you need are not actually documents, but apps that you have to download onto your phone so that someone from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs can contact you directly regarding your health and or your location to make sure that, first of all, you're staying healthy, and second, to make sure that you're actually quarantining where you're supposed to be. The first one, and probably the one that you will be using the most, is called the Overseas Entrance Locator app. This app has you first check in to wherever you're going to be quarantining at, and from there, every day, maybe about 2 to 3 times per day, you will get a notification asking you to check in with your location. The next one is called My SOS. This one is so that a representative from the Health Monitoring Center can contact you every day to ask you about your health condition and also to confirm your location. Myself, I actually have not talked to anyone. I have just had to show my face on a video call for about 30 seconds, then it automatically disconnects. Why some people get this AI and others get an actual human being, I'm not sure. I'm not complaining though. The next one is called the COVID-19 Contact app, and this one is to let you know if you've come into contact with someone who has tested positive for COVID-19. Luckily, I have not needed this. I will have a link to show you how to download these apps in the description below. The last thing to do is to reserve some kind of transportation between the airport and wherever you are staying. This is because you are not allowed to take public transportation or take a taxi. The tricky thing about this is that you have to reserve it before entering the country, but it's hard to tell how long it will take to get out of the airport because of all these procedures, especially the COVID-19 test upon arrival. I'll get into more of that later. So you have your visa, you've got the documents, and you've downloaded all of the apps. What's next? Well, every airline is different, but for ANA, I had to show my negative COVID test at the ticket counter before receiving my boarding pass. The flight itself was pretty nice. There were only about 12 or 15 people on the entire plane, and other than having to wear your mask the entire time, other than eating, it was a pretty normal flight. So once you arrive in the country, it's kind of like a field trip. You're escorted directly from the plane into their COVID-19 procedures where they check your documents, such as your questionnaire, the written pledge, and your negative COVID tests. Honestly, I remember getting my documents checked at least 3 times, the same ones. Each time they gave you a different piece of paper explaining the procedures. At some point during one of those document checks, you are brought to a section where they help you with the apps that you've downloaded. That is where you input your information of where you'll be staying and other contact info, and they'll give you a brief overview of how to report in and check in during your quarantine. The last part of this journey is the post-flight COVID-19 test. And you're given a little vial for you to spit into, and they are very particular for the type of spit that should go into the vial. When you do it, you'll see what I mean. After giving up your saliva, you're guided to the results waiting area, and the waiting time for your test results is what made reserving the car so tricky. People have reported waiting anywhere from 1 hour to over 3 hours for the results, and because you cannot reserve the car after you enter the country, you have to kind of plan accordingly. So for myself, my wife made the reservation for 4 hours after my arrival time just to be safe. I flew into Haneda on a Saturday evening about 7 p.m. and luckily it was not that busy that night because I was able to get my results in about 30 minutes. Once you receive your negative COVID test, you are cleared to go through to immigration. That is where I received my resident card and submitted my customs declarations forms for stuff that I had shipped over. And so after all that, you're free to go. The last thing is just picking up your luggage. The cool thing is that because it was not busy, my luggage was already waiting for me on a cart with my name on it. Once you're through the gates and into the arrivals lobby, that's where the monitoring stops, which was kind of a surprise given how tight everything was up until then. From there, I was free to roam around the lobby, and when the time came for my car, we just hopped in and took a ride to my apartment, which I'm at now. Once I got here, I checked in on the Overseas Locator app and my quarantine began. If you're still watching, thank you for sticking it out to the end. I hope that you enjoyed this video and found some of the information here today helpful. If you believe that I missed something or would like to hear more, let me know in the comments below. Till the next time.